Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings, everyone. This is the Sound Health Options Show for December 22nd, 2013, with Richard Olson and
Sherry Edwards with a very, very special guest.
I'm excited about the guest.
Yes, well, a lot of people are. We got a lot of mail on this one. We are here from Sound Health Options to share information and ideas in support of freedom, integrity, and authentic self. We concentrate on self-health, self-responsibility, support of humanity, and we want to put health back into the idea of health care. We're obligated to say that we are a registered 501c3 nonprofit. We are doing this for educational purposes. What else are we obligated to tell them, Richard?
We have a bad attitude from time to time, and either one of us can jump on a soapbox at the drop of a hat.
I love that. Well, in recent years or months shows, we've been talking about some things going on in the military that neither one of us liked. A few months ago, I discovered that people in the military have to pay for their own meals, their own housing, their own uniforms, ammunitions, and guns, and that set me off. We were also doing a research project on post-traumatic stress disorder as part of a project we did with the Army on traumatic brain injury. And I just happened to notice these guys that we were working on that the Army sent us all had similar kinds of things going on. So as an aside, not from our contract, but as an aside, we put together a PTSD software program, and the military finally gave us permission to share that with the public. So we're going to talk about that a bit. Then along comes this stuff with the budget recently, that over, I think it's 6 years, they're going to cut $10 billion out of veterans' handicap and retirement, cost of living. Now that ticks me off because there's $2 billion for publicity for Obamacare. Now, they think more, whoever's doing this budget, thinks more of Obamacare publicity than they do of retired and handicapped veterans. You know, I can't say what I really mean. Yes, I can. We can use our new cuss word. I'm fracking ticked off. How's that?
That's excellent. Absolutely. I could jump right on there. I just can't believe that, I could get into a rant about that. I just find it appalling.
Despicable. It's worse than appalling. I can't think of a dirty enough word to call these people. Then I find out that the military is having to pay for their own insurance. They send them over there to get maimed and shot at, and they have to pay to get patched up. I'm ticked. I'm just really cracked off. Then, when I said to the universe, I want a way to help. So we tried to put together a project for PTSD, and we gave away the software. And like 4 people took advantage of us giving away the software for PTSD, and we never heard back from any of them. And I'm like, universe, what's going on here? We need somebody to help us with. And then, about 3 weeks ago, somebody appeared at our door, a very smart, very savvy, very dedicated, wounded warrior, a veteran who knew all about this, knew much more than I did. As soon as she walked in the door and we started talking, it was like we'd known each other for 100 years. So I'm going to let her tell the story from her walking in the door about who she is, why she's here, and the phenomenal project that's been created by her presence. Mel?
I'm tearing up, Sherry. That's great. If you guys seen the email that came out and all the Facebook ranting I've done, I'm Melody Barnhart. I am a recently, I wouldn't call mentally retired, but I recently am honorably discharged from active duty. And I had a lot of problems with the military. I actually got lucky to find out about this place. My mother-in-law, the amazing woman she is, she works here, and she likes to single-handedly cure everybody. So after she got actual wind of all the problems and everything I was having between just everyday life and the struggles that me and my husband are going through as a couple, she said, hey, do me a favor and, just entertain me. So I locked myself out of the house my first day here visiting in Ohio, and I had to come to her work to get the keys, and as soon as I walked in the door, I got that warm, fuzzy feeling. Like there was a beacon of light, like I was supposed to be here. And she introduced me to Sherry, and Sherry just gave me a glimpse of all the good that she wants to do, especially for the military. And I knew that it not only personally affected me, but affected millions of people that I've come in contact with while being in the military. And it was something that I, for the first time in 15 years, got excited. I got excited. I wanted to come. I volunteer more hours here than probably her staff works. I'm at home on the internet. I'm here every day, researching new ways to help out. And it just is. It's been a blessing to even come here.
You had a diagnosis of PTSD.
Yes.
And that was part of your discharge. Are you allowed to tell us about how that came about?
I am, actually, but before I do, let me just explain that these are all my personal views. It's no reflection on the military whatsoever, no matter what branch of service, personal opinion, so don't come back and sue me. I've done 3 deployments to different theaters and things like that, and I would easily go on a deployment, do everything I had to do to get home, and wouldn't blink an eye at it. But my last deployment, it was hard for me to shut down the whole, you're not in a combat zone anymore. There's no reason to be skeptical of everyone's intentions and things like this in my everyday life. So getting up in the morning, I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was going to bed at midnight, and I was hardly sleeping. I was scared to keep doors unlocked. I would be with my son and just skeptical of everybody who came in contact with him. My husband was still on deployment, and then going into work was, here's a person like me who I've been in these theaters and seen the things they were doing to people and been a part of it. And then I go into a job every single day where I sit behind a desk and I'm expected to do paperwork for these people who have never been in that area. They've never been in that type of scenario. They, excuse the term, but they've been paper pushers, and that's been it. So for them to try to relate to me and understand what I went through, and instead of helping me or saying, you know what, you're kind of off today, they were throwing more and more at me to make everything more and more stressful. It was a short command. We didn't do anything major, but we were there till 9 o'clock at night doing one piece of paper. It was like they were trying to make their own war at home. Like these people, sometimes I would get the feeling that they didn't like their families. The only time I was happy was with my family, but I'm sitting here in an office with these people who would rather sit in this office than go home.
Were you in war zones?
Mm-hmm. I was all over Iraq. I was in Tikrit, Mosul, Kirkuk, Baghdad, Balad. In Afghanistan, I was in Bagram and Leatherneck. And I did time at Guantanamo Bay.
Are you allowed to tell us what you did?
In Guantanamo Bay, I did intel reporting. So I pretty much just compiled reports and analysis from the stuff that our 3-letter agencies were pulling. In Iraq, those little prisons that don't exist? Well, they existed, and I worked at one of those. So we would move, intel back and forth between different compounds, and, we would move our fresh caps back and forth between the different compounds and things like that. And, we were responsible for the care, custody, and control of them. In Afghanistan, I did the same type of stuff, and then I worked in a bigger prison where it was my job to make friends pretty much with these, with these detainees, and some of them convicted. It was my job to make friends with them so that they would build a rapport with me and feel comfortable and trust me, so that they would tell me different things that were going on throughout the cities and the prison and things like that. I actually created 2 different initiatives where we'd literally eavesdrop on them while they were out the rec yards and collect words that could be code for things, and we would translate it from Pashto and Dari in Arabic, and we would translate it to English, and we would give it over to the guard force, and we would give it over to the commanders and the 3-letter agencies, and they would look into it.
So you had like a double life.
Yeah, pretty much.
When we did a show a couple weeks ago on Benghazi, and we looked at Obama's voice and the guy who said he was there in 60 Minutes said he recanted. He really didn't. And I showed that to Mel, and I said, just check this out. And she was reading it as a draft, and I said, wouldn't that be valuable to the service? And she said, we have so much more than this in the way we interrogate people than just using a vocal print. So are you allowed to talk about that at all?
No, I can't, actually.
Okay. So can I ask, do you do mind control or mind games with these detainees?
Prior to the whole Abu Ghraib, they would use tactics like that. They were pretty much scare tactics and manipulation tactics. But now they go in pretty much, we'll have people like I used to do, like our counterintelligence agents. They'll collect hard as rock data, or they'll have their analysts collect hard as rock data, and they'll know this, and they'll use that as a jumping point for whenever they do, interrogations now. Just to get the baseline of if they're lying or if they're not lying, or, do you really know so-and-so, or, yeah. So they're definitely humane. It's humane in all the interrogations that they do.
Okay, well, that's kind of what I was skirting around. Was any of it?
Yeah, we have we have agencies like ICRC, which is the International Committee of the Red Cross. They would drop in and do spot checks on everything, everything to make sure the temperature in all of our buildings stayed at 72 degrees, and they definitely oversee to make sure that everyone is taken care of and treated humanely.
Then when they had Bradley Manning in jail and they turned him down to 64 degrees or something, that's to be considered inhumane, and we did it to one of our own people on our own soil?
That I have no idea about, but I just know that in theater that they are very, very, very intense on making sure that the military and the 3-letter agencies take care of, ultimately what they're trying to do is just make sure that there's no reason to start even more than what's going on. Something as small as the changing of the temperature to not having, challah meals is something that could probably start an international incident.
Would you explain what the term in theater means?
In theater is, outside the United States, it's pretty much while you're in an area dubbed a combat zone, pretty much. Like being in Iraq is considered being in theater. Being in Afghanistan in theater, Kuwait in theater.
Richard, do you have a question about her training?
I do. In the context of your training, was there anything done for your mental benefit in the stress? Just the rigors of what you're doing is one thing, but is there any way along the way where soldiers are given, or you were given, any kind of I want to call it debriefing, but I don't really mean that because I know that means a different thing. But are you given any kind of support for your own mental state while you're in this, ongoing state of stress? Stress seems like such a soft word compared to the reality.
Yeah. Prior prior to everything, the first thing they hand you is this thing called an M-Wave, which pretty much helps you, control your breathing, and it helps you de-stress. That thing literally sat in the bottom of my sea bag my entire deployment. I don't think I ever pulled it out, like not even once. And then prior to even starting this for like missions like I was on, the first thing they do is they put you through a psych screening. You take your Asperger exam. You take 3 other personality profiling exams. You sit down with, you sit down with a psychologist, and you sit down with another member of the team that's going to be leading you. And they go through questions and answers and make sure everything's okay, to see if you are a good fit for it. And, like I said, a lot of people, it's not, especially when it comes to the different services, like the Army, from day one, the Army embeds in your head, hey, you're combat. That's your job. You're infantry, you're combat, this is what you're going to do, you're soldier first, job second. The Navy, on the other hand, is more of a, here's your rate, but be flexible for other things that could come your way. Like, yeah, you may be a boatswain mate, but tomorrow you could be, you could be pulling plumbing on a ship. Like, it's never just one thing. I mean, that's what the Navy is. Actually, I think that's one of their better capabilities, is the fact that they do have you take on more than just your responsibility. But in my case, I've always been the type of person who I'm a very forward thinker. I will do what is expected of me. I will block out all emotions. I mean, I think that's why I'm so good at my job. But in my personal case, it was everyday life that stressed me out. I mean, being in a combat zone, I was completely okay with, but, it was day-to-day paperwork and traffic and bills that kind of sent me over.
Was it any of your leadership that didn't know what they were doing and put your life in jeopardy that caused the problem?
My leadership. You could do a 10-hour show on my leadership.
Not yours. I meant the people over you.
Yeah, I think leadership in the military as a whole is just, I'm not going to lie to you, it's one of the primary reasons why I got out as fast as I did. I mean, I had 12 years in, and for me to give up everything and just say, okay, time to go. I mean, I made first class, which is an E6. I mean, it wasn't like I was at the bottom of the barrel, but just the way that these people who are in leadership positions run things. I mean, I never worried about the fact that they threw us on the ground to fight and everything else like that while, we were making as much as we did, but you had all these bigwigs who were sitting in an office somewhere making 3 times what I did, because I understand you get paid for the decisions you make. But why are we paying you so much to make stupid decisions and to be poor leaders? Like, it immensely is just ridiculous the way that this whole system works.
And did that put people's lives in jeopardy because they didn't know what they were doing?
Yeah, actually, it's more of they want to see the outcome rather than what it's going to take to get to that outcome.
You told me a story about you having a medical issue.
Mm-hmm.
And could you just tell it to them like you told it to me? Because I was fracked off there, too.
Oh, poor Sherry. Last year around this time, me and my husband, we've had a few issues in trying to conceive a baby. And, I had a miscarriage at work. And so we were trying to get pregnant, but we weren't expecting it. And, I was that person who I was doing the ovulation strips, and, they kept coming back negative. And after 30 days of that, I thought maybe my strips were broken, so I threw a pregnancy test in there, and it came back positive. Well, I went into work, and I told my chain of command, I told my corpsman chief, and I told my department chief, and, I said, hey, I took this test, and it came up positive. I'm pregnant. I'm pretty sure of it. Well, everyone was like, okay, we'll go over to medical, get a blood test and everything like that. Well, during the entire month that I was taking, that I was using these ovulation strips, I was bleeding. So I went over to medical and I told them what was going on, and they said, yeah, it's a positive pregnancy test. I said, well, is it okay if you guys check me again tomorrow? I said, or the day after. I said, because I've been spotting this whole month. And they said, yeah, no problem, you know. So I go into work and I tell my chief what's going on. I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm still, you know, spotting, and, you know, they're going to test me again in another 2 days. He said, fine, just don't make this an everyday thing.
Don't make it a what?
An everyday thing.
Don't be pregnant every day.
No, don't make me having to run to medical an everyday thing. You know, we had a lot of work that had to be done and, you know, pushing papers. So I was like, okay, you know, maybe my one body meant that much here that, you know, if I was gone, the whole office would go to hell. Ooh, I can't say that, huh?
Yeah, you can say that.
Okay. You know, the whole office was going to go downhill, and, you know, the mission wouldn't continue, and, you know, Obama himself is going to come here and be like, hey, by the way, why aren't you at work? I mean, that's how it felt to me, like it was a major deal. I felt pretty important. So I said, okay, it won't be an everyday deal. So I went, you know, before work and got my blood test done and stuff like that, and it was that my HCG, which is the hormone that detects your pregnancy, it wasn't that it was declining, but it was staying the same, but it was dropping by 1 or 2 points. Not enough for it to be a miscarriage, not enough for it to be a healthy pregnancy. Well, I called my doctor called me back, and my chief answered and didn't relay the message. Apparently, me calling back my doctor wasn't important to give me the message for. So I was starting to get worried, and I went outside and I called her, and she said, yeah, I called you 3 times and left you 3 messages in your office. And I said, okay, well, what's going on? And she said, well, you know, I can't really hear you because I was on the flight line. She's like, your service is pretty bad. She was like, I'm going to call you back in 10 minutes when you're back to your office. So I go to my office, and I didn't say anything about, hey, why didn't you give me my messages, you know, because that's not my call. You know, he's leadership. He knows what's best for me and what's best for, you know, our office, because that's why you're leadership in the military. You know what's best for your people. So the doctor finally calls back, and she says, hey, I need you to get to the emergency room immediately. And I said, why, what's going on? She says, well, we're pretty sure you're having a miscarriage, but we can't figure out why the HCG levels aren't going down enough. And at this point, I just started crying. And I mean, and it was bad because, like I said, I've been through a lot, and for me to cry over something like that, you know. So I tell, you know, my chief and, you know, the other person who works in my office, I said, listen, I'm supposed to be going to the emergency room immediately. Told my corpsman, I said, hey, I'm supposed to be going to the emergency room immediately. They told me it can wait until after work, that they don't need it disrupting my work. So after I sat there and continued to cry, another person who didn't even work in my department, he stepped in and said, hey, what's going on? And I said, nothing. I said, but I really think this is something that I need to either go to the doctor or I need to go home for. And it was probably like a half hour before the end of the day. And I told him, and he said, listen, take off. If you get in trouble, I'll bite the bullet. I said, okay. So I ended up going home. And the next day I came in, and my DIVO, my department officer, calls me into his office. And he says, listen, I need to know what's going on. And I was like, excuse me? And he was like, with you. He was like, you know, last week you were upset because of a hurricane happening in your hometown. This week you're upset because you couldn't go to the doctors for your routine appointment. I said, my routine appointment? And he said, yeah. I said, in my hometown. I said, I still have family who lives there. I said, and my routine appointment is the fact that I'm having a miscarriage. And he said, okay, well, you know, we can talk about this. So he let me leave out of his office, and he said he would work on it. And, you know, here I am still bleeding, and 2 more days go by. And HCG is still kind of stuck there and everything like that. And they went and told my master chief, who in the military, like, your master chief he's pretty much your leader for all of your enlisted people. You know, all of your E8 and below, your E9 and below, like, he is your leader. Well, he tells me that I need to communicate my problems better, and maybe I should take some personal leave. Go home, take a break, take some personal leave. So I put in for leave that I was supposed to put in until my miscarriage passed, and they made me go to my command holiday party. So I showed up at a command event in the middle of my miscarriage, not knowing what was going on, pretty much on all kinds of pills from medical, because medical didn't know what was going on, so they just popped me full of ibuprofen and sent me on my way. And everyone at the place pretty much came up to me and had everyone at the holiday party came up to me and had a different story for while I was on leave. I said, really? I said, because this is none of the reasons why I'm on leave. Well, it turned out that my leadership decided to go and start rumors. So the next day, my husband took me to go get my blood test and everything like that, and, they were still tracking my blood work, and it wasn't falling, and my husband took me in to have a DNC done, and when they did the DNC, there wasn't a fetus, or there wasn't anything to be misconstrued as a miscarriage. So they did another ultrasound and come to find out I had an ectopic pregnancy that ruptured, and I had about 5 inches of blood sitting in my stomach.
Ectopic, on the fallopian tube. The egg hadn't reached the uterus.
So it had ruptured, and I was internally bleeding for they said it was a slow leak for a few days, and then it got worse.
That's incredibly
So probably
painful.
about 5 days.
That's incredibly painful. She told me this story last Friday, and she said that they gave her like 15 minutes to get over it. And I'm stomping around this office. I am so ticked off and fracked out at people, and I couldn't figure out why until I just finally sat down and, what's making me so angry? And this didn't even happen to me, although, yes, it did. I've had an ectopic pregnancy. I know how painful it is. And to have somebody just totally ignore somebody, like you're an expendable piece of the furniture, it doesn't matter if your leg got chipped or whatever, suck it up.
Well, after, when I was getting discharged from the hospital and everything, the best was my husband's command. And honestly, this command, he complains about it, I complain about it, people who work there complain about it, but when he told them what was going on, they told him leave. They said, go be with your wife, go take care of her, go make sure she's okay. My command, they did. They told me take 15 minutes, get over it, and get back to work. But when I was being discharged from the hospital, my husband was there with me, and they gave him my paperwork, and I told my husband, I said, well, let me call and let them know that we're dropping off my convalescent leave, which is, whenever you get sick, they give you an extended amount of leave. I said, and to let them know it rolls into my holiday leave, because we were going to come back out here to Ohio for the holidays. And my husband told me, no, you're not going in. He said, I'll run your paperwork in, give it to the quarterdeck. And I said, okay. Well, my husband ran it in and gave it to the quarterdeck person. They logged out, checked out on convalescent leave. So my chief ends up calling me later. Well, he didn't even end up calling me. He had another chief in the building call me. Hey, what's going on? I said, well, I had an ectopic pregnancy. I was internally bleeding. They put me on convalescent leave up until my regular leave, and then I'll be back after the holidays. And this chief told me, okay, well, did you drop off your leave? I said, yeah, everything got dropped off. It got logged in the quarterdeck. She said, we didn't receive any paperwork, so you're UA.
What is UA?
Unauthorized absence. It pretty much means I went AWOL from the military after a certain amount of time. It means I'm not at my place of duty.
So they just, you think they purposely lost these papers?
And they've done it to me before. That's why this didn't even, that's why I was happy my husband had the quarterdeck log it. So I called the quarterdeck and I said, hey, listen, they're saying that they never received my paperwork. And he said, I gave them directly to your chief. He said, and I logged it in the quarterdeck log. He said, you are accounted for. I said, well, can you please go show the log to the CO so that he knows what's going on? So they went and showed the CO, and the CO was like, okay, yeah, why is this an issue? She's on convalescent leave, and everything else just happened from there. But what was great was when I came back from my leave from here, I didn't have a desk. They told me that I needed to go sit in another office because I was a problem to my office.
Is this where you told them to shove it?
No, this isn't where I told them to shove. I never got busted down, so I never told anyone to shove it. So I didn't have a desk. They told me it was being held for a reservist. I was told that I need to go sit into another office because I was bringing down the morale in the office and that I wasn't really doing work anyways. So they moved me down to the quarterdeck, which is our duty. 24 hours you stay in this quarterdeck. And I got the lovely privilege of sitting there from 7 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon every day for our duty person. But I wasn't being punished. But every single day, at least 10 people a day would ask me, what'd you do? Why are you down here?
And did they give you an explanation, or are you allowed to ask?
No, they never gave me an explanation. They told me, just to keep me and the person, my leadership separated because of how the situation got handled, and that it wasn't punishment. But to me, that seemed like punishment. I couldn't even go to the bathroom without getting a relief. I couldn't take a lunch. I wasn't allowed to go. I wasn't allowed to go to the gym. So you leave me here at this desk, and you don't give me time to work out or anything, and then you expect me to be within standards. So my PRT right after that, they failed me.
What's a PRT?
It's the physical readiness test that we take twice a year. They failed me on it because I was, over my max weight. But I wasn't clear to even work out. And whenever I went in to talk to my CO and my XO about the whole situation, apparently my new chief, she told me that I was supposed to route a request to have my PRT extended, and that I was supposed to go talk to the CO. But she never relayed this information to me, but she mysteriously thought that she did. So when I went in there to talk to them, they had no idea I had an ectopic pregnancy, no idea that I was having family issues, because my leadership told them that I was on regular leave. And my master chief never debriefed them on the situation.
Is this an uneducated person that's doing this manipulation?
No, it's leadership.
Lack of?
And these are the people that do their PowerPoints every single year that gives them the right to be a leader.
I think your people who worked with you ought to have been upset about your situation, but that's just me. I think they treated you in an incredibly horrid way, and there's been a lot of people come through here that had PTSD, that had similar kind of things, that the people had their leaders had intellectual ability, but as far as any common sense, they lacked it totally. And it sounds like where you were.
Me personally, this is what I think, that honestly, I feel that we step into these positions, so mentally we're able to handle the things that they're doing overseas. I mean, we're agreeing to it. They're giving us pretty good briefs about what we're stepping into. But I think it's how we're stepping home and how the leadership isn't equipped or properly trained to deal with us in that capacity that they make it worse. And it sounds bad to say, but I think even our families kind of lay into it a little bit. You know what I mean? We're over there living in, definitely not conditions that we would want to see our families live in. To come home and it's like, our families instantly expect us to be, 100% dedicated to them. Well, you weren't there for me for this past year for everything that I went through. It was these people. So, yeah, I'm still going to want to be a little connected to them. I mean, I'm not going to want to throw that away. There are certain things that we can't talk about, and our family expects us to, open up and, hey, here's what I did every day. It's funny. I actually, I met my husband when I was in Afghanistan. So, I had that benefit. I mean, I'm not saying everybody run out and meet someone in Afghanistan and marry them, but my husband was, Navy as well, and I think if it wasn't for the fact that he didn't know what I did every single day, it was funny. We were like good cop, bad cop. But I think it would have been a lot worse for me when I did get home than what it was.
I'm going to put a couple of things together, and you tell me if I'm wrong.
All right.
They put you in with these prisoners
mm-hmm.
and wanted you to be friends with them, knowing that this was Middle East and women in leadership was not a good thing, and they probably looked at you with suspicion in the first place. So they used you as a woman in interrogations, but then turned around and negated you as a woman when you had an ectopic pregnancy. That's the way I see it. Is that wrong?
In so many words, no, you're pretty spot on. You're pretty spot on.
Well, you told me about some times, and I don't know if this was about sequestration, but that you and your whole crew had to do without food. Are you allowed to talk about that?
I am. That was probably the worst experience of my entire life. 2011, when they had the big, huge government shutdown, military wasn't going to get paid. I was literally in the middle of nowhere, where if I needed to make a phone call, it was a 2-hour convoy ride. We had one little tiny DFAC that pretty much fed the non-existent personnel that worked on my compound, and us being non-existent personnel. And they said, hey, by the way, you guys might not get paid. So here I am with people in our building, and, I have a son at home and his dad who's expecting money, and I had my own bills and everything else, and here I am in the middle of nowhere, not even able to get to a phone, and I might not get paid. So they started rationing our food really bad, so it came down to literally we were getting bare bottom of the barrel of everything. They were telling us if we could break into the MREs.
What's an MRE?
It's meals ready to eat. If you watch the movies, it's the little brown bag meals they get all the time with little hand warmers. Not the greatest of food. So I literally told everyone, and I think this is why my leadership didn't really approve of me when we were out there. I told everyone that if they didn't pay me, I was going to stand outside the building in a T-shirt that says, "We'll work for food," until they start paying us.
So you could at least have food.
Yeah.
So they're letting soldiers do without.
So that's what they equip us for, though, is they do. My poor husband, he was in Afghanistan, and it was right after I left, and he didn't have water for I couldn't remember how long.
I'm going to get really ticked off here. Well, I'm already ticked off. I'm just going to say it out loud. We have these Congress people making all these rules about sequestration and the government shutdown and all this crap, and they can spend 1 or 2 terms and get paid for life. Now, here's soldiers laying down their life and limb and coming back and being totally not able to work, or they want to retire, and the government now is taking away their retirement and pensions and cost of living. As a soldier, is that fair?
No, it's not, especially since we're moving to a more corporate America type military. I mean, they have us doing these whole Lean Six Sigma belts, which is, the same thing you would do in a corporate position. And it sounds bad, but that's what it's turning to. It turns into a more corporate military, but less benefits. They don't want to pay us in the long run. I mean, the way I see it is if someone dedicates 20 years to a job, they have an option to retire. Will their retirement be as much? No, it won't. But the military, the reason why we do have that 20 years to retire and we get the benefits that we do is because of the extensive trauma they put our bodies through, our bodies and our minds.
So you ended up getting PTSD over lots of things, not just how you were being treated.
They said that the least of my problems for PTSD was my deployments, that it was more of the leadership and the lack of it when I returned and the way that all of my situations were handled.
And they sent you to places you weren't supposed to be in the first place, and you couldn't tell your family you were there.
Yeah, I was sending my mom postcards from Ireland, and I didn't even know I was.
How does that happen?
I would email, and someone would write it out on would either type it out on a postcard or, and they would send it to my mom. My son got emails from Ireland.
So not only are they lying and abusing you guys, but they're not telling your families where you really are.
No.
Is that legal?
If it's going to protect a mission, yeah. Just like, and it's funny because military, it sounds bad, but I think that we're just we give ourselves the name that people actually predict sometimes, or actually the people, that's not the word I'm looking for, that actually people perceive, because OPSEC, ship's movement, which is like, when the boat's going out, when the boat's coming in. I mean, I'm friends with my friends. I used to be, because now I'm more picky about who I'm friends with on my social media, but, I would see on there, oh, my husband's coming home on this day, and he's on this ship, or, my husband's leaving for Afghanistan on this day, or, this is what's going on at work. All that stuff can get your husband killed. It can totally be detrimental to whatever mission they're trying to do. So, I mean, things like that, I learned that that's one of my major activators, is pretty much military members being stupid. Like, my husband, me and him talked about it, and I deleted my Facebook for a while. Just because the fact that every time I would get on there, it would turn into a huge rant. And if it wasn't just on Facebook, I was ranting to him. I'm like, I don't understand so-and-so. Why would you put this on there? Or why would you do this? And why are you doing this? And my husband's like, just delete it. So after a while, I found out that that's one of my triggers, is the fact that I hold so much integrity and compassion for the military that when people treat it like crap, or when people put other people at risk, it's something that it hurts. It gives me severe anxiety.
Do you think that what they did with the budget and attack, I don't know what the word is except attacking the handicap and the retirees from the military, that they did that deliberately because they knew you were so passionate about protecting them?
I think that is just pure stupidity. If I get hurt on my job tomorrow, I can't go and claim workers' comp. You know what I mean? When I was active duty, I mean, I can't, say, you know what, maybe this job isn't good, maybe this is something that's a little dangerous for me. I'm going to get workers' comp, I'm going to train for a different job, It's not, or I'm going to get unemployment, train for a different job. No, I could literally cut off, true story, I have a friend who cut off his fingertip. He was out of work for a week, and they brought him right back in to do the same exact job. Not saying, hey, is this something that you're going to be okay with? How, do you think that it's poor training that you hurt yourself? What happened? No, because that's what they do with the military. They don't care what they do to us. They don't care if they mentally hurt us, physically hurt us, or if it's our job, our own stupidity. If it's our own stupidity, well, then that's another PowerPoint we sit through. That's not us learning how to do the job better. It's us sitting there watching, a flip screen. It is. You're getting what you pay for pretty much with the military. You guys keep paying us like crap, don't want to put money into the right training, the proper equipment, you're going to get crap.
Is that why you feel like there's very little support for you if you get hurt or have a mental issue?
I know that there is very, very little support if you get hurt or have a mental issue. And I see it every single day, especially with young sailors and Marines and young soldiers, and I do. Every day I see it. No one wants to go to their leadership. I know people who get phone calls at all hours of the night who aren't even in a leadership position just because that one person needs to reach out to somebody, and you're the only one that shows any compassion. They don't want to talk to their leadership because their leadership is concentrated on them. They're focused on themselves. Everything is about a good eval or a good fit rep or what award can I get out of this. No one puts their heart in it. No one looks out for their people anymore.
Is that why you got involved with Wounded Warriors?
I have a utter deep compassion for just veterans in general because, I've been in long enough to where I've seen a slight change in the military, and to just hear the stories of how it was and how much integrity and just, the whole family orientation and it does. Like, I live for it, and I got involved with those organizations because I want to help people. I don't want people to suffer. I'm slowly getting better, and I want other people to start getting better. I don't think it's fair. No one should have to have hate in their heart for something they love for so long.
Richard, that fits in with the question you have.
I have, there's a bunch of questions in there. One is, first I wanted to make sure that I got that right. When you talked about being discharged, they actually acknowledged that part of your PTSD was to do with your command chain in terms of they actually stated in writing. I'm not trying to bust you. I'm just trying to I want to make sure that you said this because it was amazing.
In my numerous counseling sessions, they did say that, part of it was due to my current situation at my command, that it was an emphasis and a trigger.
And so once they give you the diagnosis of PTSD, what is there any offering of here's what we can do for you, or is it just medications and go away?
Oh, they hand you pills and send you to go away. They tell you if your command will allow you, you can come back for another appointment, but if your workload is too heavy, then, you can always look to the VA.
And we have people here who work here who have been looking to the VA, and it's useless, according to them. It takes ages to get in. It's subpar help, and it's a pill and go away. Richard, do you have more questions?
I think I'm temporarily speechless, almost, or ranting, on the verge of ranting or speechless. I'm not sure which.
We've got a whole
Amazing.
staff here that's been listening to these, what's really going on, and we're all ticked off. Tell the people more about the Wounded Warriors and how, did they help you, or they?
I think that between the IA, it's Iraq-Afghanistan Veterans Association, the Wounded Warrior Foundation, and the Naval Special Warfare Foundation, Disabled American Veterans, all organizations that I donate to and I stand behind completely. They do so much for veterans, so much for the community. I mean, the Disabled American Veterans, for free, you can turn around and bring them your medical record, and they'll help you compile all your information in order to turn it over to the VA for your disability claim. I mean, for free. They don't ask you for money. They don't ask you to join their organization, nothing. Naval Special Warfare Foundation, like, honestly, I've done spec war tours, and they do everything from children's support to veteran support to active duty and reserve. Just all the those organizations, they always, you see them everywhere. T-shirts, you see them, holding events, and just, I'm a big, firm believer in joining veterans organizations and giving to them.
Well, we have to have a caveat here that there's a lot of people out there just shirking people for money, and 2 cents out of the dollar.
Oh, gosh, yes. Do your research. I mean, anyone can sit down and send you an email or send you a letter and say, oh, I'm from here or I'm from there, and this is my story. I mean, look into it before you send money or do anything for, just double check their credibility. You can go to, just Google it, do veterans organizations, or and then follow through to their different websites. I mean, usually they'll have a phone number. You can call and speak to a live person. But I know people, especially around the holidays, oh, this organization needs your money, and we support veterans. And so definitely do your research.
Some of it's poppycock. Richard, do you want to form your question? I could read it, but I don't really understand it here.
I think that somewhere back there, Melody, I think I heard you use the term talking about the corporatization of the military. Is that correct? And could you talk about that a little more? I think I know what you mean, and that's why I'm asking about it. In other words, you mean sort of the privatization? Is that what you were alluding to?
No, we call it corporate. We call it corporate military. It went from, rich in tradition and pride and integrity to everything is basically sold on, it's political. The military has become political. Everything from who gets an award to who gets your, the recognition to who gets to go to this school. Everything is about, it's political. Like, it's funny. We joke around all the time. They do this thing in the Navy. If you're at a sea command, they'll cap, which is Command Advancement Program. They'll cap one person, one person to E4 and one person to E5 and one person to E6. And you can always tell right before that comes around because everybody starts what we call politicking. They may not have all their quals or they may not, be the greatest sailor, but they'll go around and make friends with absolutely everybody if it means they're going to get your vote. So it's become political and corporate.
Popularity.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, they don't care if you're a hard worker or if you stay late or what you get done. The minute you screw up that one time, they're going to go into their board meeting and they're all going to talk crap on you. And then you're going to see everyone's opinion and everyone's whole perspective towards you change to push you to the outskirts.
When you got here and you saw what we could potentially do, you started forming a project in your mind. Would you talk about how what's here supported what you knew you wanted to do all along anyway?
From the moment I got here, I was not even going to, I'm going to tell you 100% truth. I was a little skeptical. I couldn't see how listening to, one sound over and over again could fix years of me being broken. And then I had the pleasure of sitting with Ken, and Ken did my vocal profile. And after that, he did my nano voice. And Ken literally, he just shook. I said, what? He said, wow. He said, have you looked at this? I said, no. He said, were you using he calls it my interrogator voice. He says, were you using your interrogator voice or were you using your normal voice? I said, my normal voice. Why? He said, because this right here states everything that Sherry said from the moment she first talked to you, that you're very intellectual and very, very into humanity. So I read the report, and I was like, wow. I was like, if this is right, what else could be right? So Ken did my vocal box, and he did my vocal profile, and, you know, we went over some of the dots and everything, and, you know, some of the points, and he was like, oh, my God. He was like, did you know this? Did you know that? I'm like, yeah, how do you know that? And from that moment forward, I'm like, you know what, this is something that needs to be shared. This is something that people need to know about. I mean, I hate taking pills, and I feel like I spent 12 years of my life taking every single pill that the Navy handed me. Take this one for mood swings. Take this one for anxiety. Take this one for heartburn. Take this one for this. Take this one for this. I mean, I've never seen so many narcotics come in and out of my hands. I'm pretty sure drug dealers know what that feels like, but I wasn't a drug dealer. I was a service member. How are you going to put me on so much stuff and expect me to do a job? Especially when I can hurt people. So to come here and know that I can sit down and listen to these tones and not have the side effects of all kinds of drugs and things in me. And
was it the good night's sleep that convinced you?
Oh my God, that first night of sleep, Sherry, let me tell you, that was the best sleep I think I ever got in my entire life. After I took the class, Ken programmed a tone box for me, and you know, he said, hey, when you listen to this box, you know, you want to listen to it at night or when you're in bed or something. He said, I'm going to tell you. He said, you're not going to get through the whole thing. He said, but you're going to want to still listen to it while you're sleeping. I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, whatever. This box isn't going to work. I literally put this box on, and within 2 seconds, I felt like I was waking up, and it was because my mother-in-law was knocking on my door telling me it was time to get up. It was the first time I had deep, rested sleep. Like, I felt refreshed. I didn't need coffee. And usually I'm that person who I'll sleep for 3 hours, and I'll be waking up every 15 minutes to kind of clear a room or, you know, to go see what's going on outside the window, check on my son, make sure my husband's still breathing. I mean, but I really did. Like, I slept through the entire night.
So you've gone through the experience.
Mm-hmm.
You've taken the class.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's your project? Because that's the real deal we want to share with people.
I am working on my own little PTSD project. I have 3 case studies already lined up. I have 2 of them for whenever I get back to San Diego. Marketing, definitely. Like, I want this to reach everybody. I think that's why I flooded everyone I know's Facebook the way I did, because it does. This needs to be shared. It's like having the big secret to, like, you know, the big secret to the fountain of youth, and you keeping it all for yourself. Well, do you really want to be the only person at the end of the day that still looks like you're in the 20s and your friends are, you know, near death? No, you want to share it because you want to live vitality with everybody. My happiness, I want to share it with everyone. I want everyone who suffers like I do to know what it's like to finally just go to a grocery store and instead of wanting to slam your cart into the first person in front of you, you know, say thank you or excuse me or here, you know what, you go ahead. I want them to know what it's like not to have road rage or, you know, not just constantly just walking around angry. I want everyone to get rid of their wrinkles, their frowny, meanie wrinkles. I want everyone to smile. And I do. I think this is the wave of the future, and I'm going to share it. I'm already practicing on all this software, and you know, like I said, I have my own case studies signed up, and I hope my friends want to reach out and be my case studies too.
We've done a study with PTSD and created software, and Mel has convinced us to use it for this month. It is now up on Blog Talk waiting for you. It is free. We give away a free software every month, and this month it's going to be PTSD. There's the other software there, Abacus. There is a textbook. Mel, do you have an email where they can get in touch with you if they want to help? Because I'm going to ask them to do something.
I do. It's Melody, MELODY, .M, like Marie, .Barnhart, BARNHART, @gmail.com. Or you can reach me here for another couple of weeks at public relations at vocalprofiling.com.
Public relations at vocal. I'm typing this in case you're hearing typing, vocalprofiling.com. I put both of those in the chat. What you have put together is a list of people we need to contact, and we want to do this for groups. And every community will give your community the softwares that they need to help these folks. We've put out paperwork that we know what we want to look for, at least what came up in the project that we already did. We're looking to partner with a vitamin company that will make some good nutrients that we find consistently missing. We found 2 sets. On Happy Hour, we've already done this and shown you how to do it with the nano voice, like calcium, which is the note of D sharp. Calcium, niacin, linolenic acid, and zinc. Those are the first 4 major issues of PTSD, and those are the people who don't know that they even have a problem. And the second layer is B5, choline, magnesium, and progesterone, and those are the ones that we see that are committing suicide. And we want to help any and all of them, but we can't do it all. We're going to have your help. So we figure the only way we can do that is to train you to do these evaluations, look at somebody's vocal print, and try to help get them some help. I don't know if there's a grants, if any of you know about grants that we could use to get them nutrients or to see a doctor or whatever. We are giving away what we are doing. If I could, I would give it everything away because that's my idea of being wealthy, the ability to give away anything I want to give away. So we're asking your help, and if you have anybody in your community who needs us, please use one of those 2 emails or write to me. Mine's easy too. And Richard is saying to you that the replay of this will be on the Sound Health Options website on the left-hand side. What, in a half hour or so, Richard?
Usually it renders out about 30 minutes after, but it's down on the lower left, and there's a player that has the last 5 shows. But I just want people to be able to pass that on to their friends because I think this is such a powerful show.
We had an email, well, we had several, but we had one particularly poignant email from a woman telling us about a young man, and she had several people in her family who had PTSD, but one of the young men, and this is her words, succumbed to PTSD and died Friday night. The funeral is tomorrow. We don't want that to happen. This guy was, according to the person who wrote, a wonderful husband and father. He lives in Ohio. He was a Navy SEAL. We want to help to the point where this doesn't happen again, because according to our guest, who she herself is a wounded warrior, there's very little help. There's lip service that they are helping, but they just took away part of the budget to even help these soldiers with this new budget. You want to say something?
Actually, right now, like our biggest key to getting us help are the families. Pay attention to your family, to your military member. Any change in behavior, things like that, call. The Veterans Affairs, and they have suicide hotline numbers and PTSD hotline numbers. They are more prone to take phone calls from the family members and to get help from the family members than the service member going in and saying, you know what, something's not right. So, definitely make those phone calls for your service member. If you're afraid of the backlash, just remember, at the end of the day, you're getting them better.
What should they look for?
Any change in behaviors. If they're digging trenches in your front yard, I would definitely call then. The whole clearing rooms, the uneasiness, the heavy drinking. If you had someone who is a drinker and all of a sudden they're not a drinker, that would be a sign. Like, you know what, maybe, this person used to have a couple beers with me every Saturday, and all of a sudden, they don't do it. Or this person never drank before or had 1 or 2 beers, and now they're drinking a 6-pack and within 20 minutes.
Jumping